Hello everyone, welcome to the first episode of the Flying Scotsman Christmas 2021. We have, if it's actually showing, we have Patchouli Rain with us today.
Hi guys!
And she is going to be with us as we attempt to unbox what I hope is a Raspberry Pi 4. So grab yourselves a lovely peppermint hot chocolate, mince pie, or whatever it is you eat at the time of the Yule, and come and join with us as we unbox some incense sticks. So, we've got this big box here, and I think I think that inside this box is the Raspberry Pi 4B retro gaming kit, and this is the 4 gig version of the Raspberry Pi. And it comes with a 32 gig memory card, 2 Super Nintendo-esque controllers, a card reader, power supply, and a micro to regular HDMI cable so I can hook it up to the TV. So, but like I said, it could quite easily be a set of Nag Champa incense sticks because I've also ordered them. So I've used Mr. Scissors to cut into the box, so I will now zoom us in and we'll get unboxing. So, why might you want a kit such as this? Well, anyone who has been in the retro computer and gaming console scene for as long as I have will know that over the years, as things get older, prices will increase significantly. There was one time you couldn't even get rid of, for example, your Game Boy. But now, you're looking at quite a high price. And this is because hardware obviously degrades over time. So good examples become harder to find. And then, of course, we live in the era of scalpers. Scalpers are literally, they're scum. They will scalp anything. So, I mean, these were the same knobheads who are literally trying to scalp face masks and hand sanitizer at the beginning of last year. So, yeah, I've really got little to no sympathy for them. But the point is, for most people, they can't afford to just go out and buy an Atari 2800 and all the games that go with it. Obviously, console manufacturers have tried to temper this by offering many versions of older consoles. So you can get the 2600 Mini, you can get the NES Mini Classic, the SNES Mini Classic, PlayStation Mini, which was a bit of a disappointment. Then on the Nintendo Switch, you have Nintendo Online. Get a selection of Super Nintendo, Nintendo Entertainment System, Nintendo 64 and Mega Drive games to play. If you've got Nintendo Online Plus, the expansion pack, whatever it's called. But for something that out the box is good value for money, because all these mini consoles, a lot of them, especially the Nintendo ones, they've fallen into the hands of scalpers rather than people who want to play. If you want something that's a bit more value for money, the Raspberry Pi might be your best bet. Now, I will say that with the Raspberry Pi, you will have to do some of the setting up yourself. In fact, you're going to have to do pretty much all of the setting up yourself. So, let's get started. So, look at this. This actually came from the Pi Hut, I want to say, and this is one of their many bundles. So you can get like the Raspberry Pi 400 starter kit and things like that. But this is quite literally the retro gaming kit. So once the air pockets are out the road, we can actually have a look at what's inside here. So it's all quite nicely packed. The first thing that I found is this, which is, I believe, this is a USB card reader. The Pi Hut I think anyway, although I'm not seeing a USB port on it. I think maybe it is though, but it does have a lanyard, so that's quite good. So that is for reading the micro SD card, which we'll come back to. We have a mini to regular size HDMI adapter. Nice. A micro SD card. And this is 32 gigs. Now again, I will come back to that. These boxes aren't necessarily labelled, so I've got something here. I think that's actually the case. So that's the thing. Then we have the actual Raspberry Pi 4 computer itself in a nice wee red packet. That's quite nice. Then you have the official Raspberry Pi plug. Now, if you're buying a Raspberry Pi 4, if, like me, you're upgrading from previous models, I still have my Raspberry Pi 1 in a box somewhere. I never did get a case for that. Then you will need a new plug, because the new Raspberry Pis use USB Type-C. Then we have two USB controllers. Now, like I said, these are meant to mimic the Super Nintendo controller. And while I'm going to use these, I have ordered a Logitech Rumble controller. Basically looks like a PlayStation controller. It's a predecessor to the FX10 series of controllers, and those I think are what I'm going to be using in the future because they're just better. They've got more buttons, and because I want to be playing PlayStation games on this, I need something with more buttons. So there you go. And we have a wee dossier here that tells us about the Raspberry Pi gaming kit. Now I can't read that, so if I'll hold this. I don't know if it's zoomed in at all, but I'll let you guys read this. Right, that's quite enough of that. So while I did get a 32 gig micro SD card with this kit, I don't feel that the capacity is going to be large enough for what I want to do. So I went to the Black Friday sales and I bought this. This is a SanDisk Extreme Pro micro SD XC UHS-I card. It's a micro SD card, 256 gigs. So I'm going to be using that in place of that. But we will come back to that because this is going to require some setting up. So, the Raspberry Pi 4 then. We've got some installation to do. So the case that comes with this, I believe it's a metal case that comes with a fan. No, it doesn't. Right. I'm going to be honest. I have no idea how I'm supposed to put this together. I mean, seriously, there's no instructions or anything with it. So, but there's ports on the side for the like of your HDMI and USB Type-Cs. And then there's this guy. I think I know how it goes. So, yeah, no. Now I know. So you've got, I think this is the front, this is the back, and then the Raspberry Pi computer, which I think we can unbox now. No, I think it's this side I want to unbox. All right, no, I've got to go here. Oh, that's nice. So now we get our first look at the Raspberry Pi 4. Look at that. Now, this has obviously the usual Raspberry Pi hat. I think there's fan headers and what have you. Probably should populate that. Got USB Type C, micro HDMI, something. Speaker out. 2 USB 2 ports, 2 USB 3 ports, Ethernet, and then nothing on this side. So I'm thinking the Pi 4 will slot in like that. And surely there's more standoffs. But essentially that's how it goes. At least the Raspberry Pi 4 does come with some instructions. Even if they are tiny. So here we are. Still not entirely sure which part is which, but there you go. And there's where your micro SD card will go. So there you have it. So the next part of the operation, of course, is installing an operating system. And the way that we do that is that we'll need to go and download an operating system, which we then flash to the SD card, which acts as this machine's primary storage. I also wanted to point your attention to the fact that while this is video number 1 of the Flying Scotsman Christmas 2021, we've had flurries of snow in the night, because this is the 27th of November, the day I'm recording, and yeah, the weather has been pretty wild. So what operating system are we going to use with the Raspberry Pi? Well, there's a few ones that we can use, including many different Linux distro flavors and even Windows for ARM. But what we're going to be doing is using an operating system called RetroPie, which provides a beautiful front end for retro gaming and emulators and what have you, and also will allow you to jump out to the Pixel desktop environment. So it's based on Raspbian, and you can get it by going to your browser and going to RetroPie. Get lost. RetroPie.org.uk, and that's RetroPie as in PIE, as in a tasty pastry rather than a mathematical function. Welcome to RetroPie. RetroPie allows you to turn your Raspberry Pi, Odroid C1 or C2 or PC into a retro gaming machine. It builds upon Raspbian, Emulation Station, RetroArch and many other projects to enable you to play your favourite arcade, home console and classic PC games with the minimum setup. For power users, it also provides a large variety of configuration tools to customize the system as you want. It is very versatile. RetroPie sits on top of a full OS. You can install it on an existing Raspbian or start with the RetroPie image and add additional software later. It's up to you. While the RetroPie's project originated from petrockblock.com, this is now the home of RetroPie. So what we're going to do is just click on Get RetroPie. Pre-made images for the Raspberry Pi. Latest image of RetroPie is 4.7.1, released November the 4th, 2020. That's actually quite old. But there we go, and then there's an official installation guide. So you'll need to select which Raspberry Pi you have, the 0 or 1, 2 and 3. Or 4 and 400. The Raspberry Pi Zero obviously is the cut down version of the machine. So I'm just going to go tap that. Raspberry Pi 4/400. And there we go. So this is not too big of an image. So depending on the speed of your internet connection, shouldn't take too long. So while that's downloading, what I am going to do is get the memory card prepared. And I must admit, I do quite like how it has a full installation guide. So we'll use the Raspberry Pi Imager. Download for Windows. So while the other image is downloading, this can be downloading. And I will get my memory card. See if I can unbox it. So, we have that unboxed, and now I'm going to install the Raspberry Pi imager. So, quite simple, just click install, and it will go ahead and do that. And then there you go. And an operating system. So wait, I'm guessing this would actually just download the operating system itself. That's quite interesting. So I have the Raspberry Pi memory card, or the memory card I'm going to use with the Raspberry Pi, inserted into my card reader. Okay, I must have gotten a 128 gig one instead. Okay, it's not a problem. So I also have the image. So I can just extract that, and there we go. That's a .img file. There we go. Now I'm guessing that with this, I can have the Raspberry Pi OS installer, the imager, download RetroPie for me. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to see if I can use the custom image file. So I've got the image selected. Now I just need to choose the storage. Generic storage device, 127.9 gig. And I want to write to that. Now all data on the memory card will be deleted, so mind you don't have anything on it. Make sure everything's backed up. Do I want to continue? Why, yes I do. So this is really not taking any time at all to write. And now it's just going to verify. And there we go. You can now remove the SD card from the reader. Excellent. And then we can put that back into the Raspberry Pi. And we can actually think about setting it up. So now we're ready to install and start up for the first time. So we need to install the memory card into the Raspberry Pi. Okay, so the memory card, I believe it goes the pin side up. Right, there we go. So this is the first boot of the Raspberry Pi, and while that's booting, what I think I can do is it's actually going to check the file system. I will unpack one of these Nintendo controllers. So just use Mr. Scissors. Smells new and almost a bit orangey. Nice. So, we're at the now familiar to me, welcome screen of RetroPie. This is something that I've used quite a lot in the past, actually. So here's a controller. It looks and feels pretty much like a Super Nintendo controller. But I'm looking forward to getting my Logitech ones. So I'm just going to pop that in here. I do have a keyboard that I like to use with these things in case I need to do any typing or what have you. Hold a button on your device to configure it. Press F4 to quit at any time. USB gamepad. So D-pad up, D-pad down, D-pad left, D-pad right, start, select, button A or east, button B or south, X, Y, left shoulder, right shoulder. I'll hold any button to skip. So obviously there's a lot of these buttons that I can't use. So there we are in. So now I can choose various things. And I think I will hook a keyboard up to it because I need to change the font size because I can't see this. So now we've got the Raspberry Pi set up, we need some ROMs to play on it. Now, what are ROM files? ROM files are basically dumps of games. So they're like CD images. And in fact, some ROMs would be CD images, so like of your PlayStation, your Sega CD, your Sega Saturn, Dreamcast, PlayStation 2, etc., etc. Now, obviously, this is a very grey legal area, although the legal people would tell you it's black and white. It's like, you don't copy these under any circumstances. But if, for example, I think it is a grey area because, you say you can play the ROMs if you've got the hardware and you've got the discs, you've got the media, just play the ROMs that you want to play. Play the ROMs of the games that you own. We're not going to get into that, but I hate to say this, but if you're unsure of anything, you're better off checking your local laws, because, again, I cannot be held responsible. But let's imagine that we've got the legal paperwork sorted out, and there are ROMs that you can get legally, because there are still games being developed for these old systems. So you can actually go out and buy ROMs, or even download them, or what have you. So once you've got the ROMs, what I have been doing all day is I was originally SSHing in through my server to the Raspberry Pi and just copying the ROMs over from that to the Pi. And that was taking a while because my Pi is on wireless, which is a bit of a stupid thing to do. So after about 12 hours of this, what I've decided to do instead is what I should have done all along. I've just copied all of my ROMs over to a USB flash drive, put the flash drive into the Raspberry Pi, and because I was already SSH'd in, I decided to just go onto the Raspberry Pi itself from the PC, opened up Midnight Commander. Now this seems to be installed by default in the RetroPie image, which is quite useful. It's an open source version of the old Norton Commander for DOS. And what I've done is I've got all the ROMs organized into the same folders like you have on the Raspberry Pi. And I'm just literally copying everything over to the ROMs folder in the Raspberry Pi. So your ROMs will be located in tilde/retropie/ROMs. So that's copied from the USB, which is mounted itself to /media/USB 0. So once all the ROMs have copied, which now, because I'm using a USB flash drive rather than a wireless internet connection, a wireless network connection, this is going to take minutes rather than hours. And once that's done, we're actually going to need to go and restart the Raspberry Pi so that the ROMs become available to us in Emulation Station. Like I said at the start of this video, this is not a plug-and-play system per se. This is something that's more for enthusiasts, but if you have someone to set one up for you, it is a hell of a lot of fun. So, we now have the Raspberry Pi set up, both with a Logitech wireless controller and one of the fake Super Nintendo controllers. And, well, Tina and I are doing with this exactly what we said we were going to do. Patchouli Rain, that is. We're playing Mario Brothers for the Atari 7800. So, with that said, we're taking it in turns. So, I think this is a brilliant place to end this video because, well, Tina's taking her turn. I think it's time to make a cuppy.